good elbow height, and took an elbow right in the eye, and I went down.
Uh, Feel me now, come on. Time's up. Time's up.
Hello, everybody, and thank you guys for joining us again on another Planet Podcast. My name is Victor Verba, and I am here with my good friend, Mr. Jeffrey Young. Jeff, how's it going today, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Vic?
Oh, dude, not too bad, man. The weather's been turning around. Spring's starting to roll around the corner. Although we had some interesting weather the other day. It was 70 and sunny, beautiful weather for the Chicagoland area. And then the next day it was 30 and snowing. So, kind of the usual thing that I suppose we get here around springtime.
Yep. We had the same thing about 4 hours south from you, so I'm in the same boat as you are.
There you go. So one of the things, Jeff, I wanted to talk a little bit about today, and this was an interesting call that we had come up with that we were on the other day together, where we were doing an implementation, and I thought this was kind of funny. It was an interesting conversation with some of the folks on the other line, and everybody, we all had a good time with it. But we were talking a little bit about music. Not just, what do you listen to now? What do you listen to before? But a little bit about, what do you listen to? But how do you ingest it now as opposed to what you used to do before? So
Yep.
it was a fun call. And you had some interesting thoughts, and we differed a little bit on our opinions of music slightly.
A little bit. Yeah, no, it was pretty interesting, and I was thinking about it. I don't even really know how we got there, right? We were just kind of doing an implementation, and while we're doing stuff and configuring, there's always kind of that downtime and making idle conversation, and all of a sudden we're spending the next 20 minutes everybody on the call talking about music and where they get it from, where they used to get it from. I mid 40s, 44 years old, so I'm familiar with the records. I had obviously cassettes, I had CDs, and now I've gotten all of that out of my life, and my music is right here on my phone now. But yeah, we were talking a little bit about how the again, going back to some Super Bowl related stuff, the halftime show this year, and
Yep.
it was geared toward, I think, probably Vic, you and I's age group pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I mean,
enjoyed it. I thought it was a good show.
yeah, I liked it. I liked all the memes that were floating around out
Oh, yeah.
there. I saw a couple that said, "Hey, if you know everybody performing in the halftime show, you're going to be, calling AARP in the next couple years." And there was kind of that middle age group that was like, "Wait, I mean, it's funny, but wait, it's not funny."
It's so
Why?
true.
Yeah, it's true. There was some call. You'll be ready for a colonoscopy soon and stuff like that. And I'm going, oh, yeah, I guess that's true. But can we just enjoy the halftime show? So yeah, it was an interesting conversation. And it was one of those things that my daughter is 13, and the other day I said something about because I just said CD, right? I don't. Well, I'm sure there's CD somewhere in my house, but I said something about one of the people that she was listening to CD, and she looks at me and goes, "Dad, they're not CDs. They're called albums." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. Yep. I guess you're correct in that statement." Um, but no, it was, going to the mall and walking around and hitting the record store and
Oh,
and
yeah.
checking stuff out. So where are you listening to things at?
So that's interesting because I think if I gave, so my daughter is 9, she just turned 9. My son's 5. I think if I gave them a CD, they would probably think it's a DVD, which unto itself nowadays is kind of a dinosaur.
Sure.
So I think they would be a little bit confused. So for me, like, look, man, I got, boxes of empty CD cases because they all went into a book, but I still got all the CDs. So, but
You still
nowadays,
have the book in the car? That's a big.
I did. Not anymore, man. Not anymore. Because honestly, my car won't even play CDs. So, like,
Yep.
I'd be SOL.
Yep.
But now it's all, I mean, like, I'm a Spotify guy. I've had Amazon Music. I just didn't. My issue with Amazon Music personally was the recommendations didn't quite follow the uniqueness of some of the garbage that I listened to, for lack of a better word. And I had Pandora for a little while, so I've kind of done the gambit. I didn't like Pandora's structure. But I hit on Spotify, and their recommendations for new music that I've never heard before were pretty spot on for the eclectic type of music that I end up listening to. And when I say that, I mean everything from 5-year-old to 9-year-old to middle-aged 45-year-old. So I kind of get the gambit. So I'm really a Spotify guy nowadays. But the word album now is interesting because I can't remember the last time I listened to a full album. And to be honest, going off that halftime show, the last full album I probably listened to was probably Eminem's Curtain Call.
Yeah. And it's one of those, right? So I had an older brother, and so I got, the hand-me-down records and that kind of thing. So I'm used to that. I see this revival of, I guess we're calling it vinyl now. And I have zero desire to have any of that in my life again. Because trying to get that needle to drop right where it should be, and I want nothing to do with that. So I do Pandora.
Okay.
Not paid though. I've always had.
Yep.
I mean, since it came out, right? So I just have the free one, and I mean that's probably what I listen to. I'd say 90% of the time, if I'm out doing something in the yard or whatever, I just turn it on and let it go. We have Amazon Prime, so now I also pay for Amazon Music, which my daughter uses that.
Okay.
And then we also have Sirius XM.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm paying for every music service, but Spotify I've never used, Apple Music I've never used. I'm kind of a creature of habit, and until Pandora tells me I can't use it for free anymore, I'll probably continue using it.
Okay.
But yeah, the full album thing, man, I think that's a thing of the past. And I distinctly remember picking up, the latest whatever CD and putting it in the car and listening to it, from beginning to end and going, wow, this is great, or wow, this is miserable. I should have just bought the single, which is a whole different thing, right? But yeah, I think there's something lost even with artists that I like. So let's say, Foo Fighters puts out, I hear a couple songs here and there, but
Yeah.
I haven't taken the time to listen to the full new, whatever the latest album they have is. I just hear the songs as they randomly play.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point because, it is kind of are you missing out on some things that aren't, for lack of a better word, mainstream, so they don't get played. Where when you listen to the full album, you got to experience that whole kind of album. Where now it's just like one song, and then it's a different artist and a different artist, and then you'll probably hear that song again. But yeah, that's actually a really interesting point because like I said, I can't remember the last at least relatively new album that I've heard anybody put out. It's piecemeal.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing as, when you and I were listening to, just normal radio and they'd have the same, 3 or 4 songs. And I mean, you'd hear those songs every hour.
Over. every 10 minutes.
My daughter and I drove a couple hours to pick up a puppy. Oh, I don't know, a month and a half ago. And we had Sirius XM on, and, we heard Ed Sheeran, The Weeknd, Olivia Rodrigo, and I can't remember who the other person was. We heard them like 4 times in this 2-hour drive, the same song. Like, it was just insane. And I'm like, this is like, one, I don't necessarily like a lot of that music, but she does, so I listen to it. But my music's probably not appropriate for a 13-year-old. So there's that also. I think I said, hey, you want to hear a song? And I turned on something Metallica off Ride the Lightning. And she's like,
nice.
I don't even know what this is. And I'm like,
nice.
Broaden your horizons. This is what I was listening to when I was your age, which maybe I shouldn't have been, but.
So let's ask this then. So, music I think music tastes have changed a lot, clearly, and that's normal. I mean, music has always advanced to different genres throughout generations and generations. I will say one of the things that I've grown up with is I still listen to the music that my parents listened to. Like I'll listen to look, a Simon and Garfunkel song comes on, dude. I'll listen to it. I enjoy it. Led Zeppelin. I mean, that wasn't my generation, but like I'll listen to some of that classic music. If you start to think about a lot of the newer music, do you see 10 years from now people still listening to that? It seems to me like it's very fly by night, like that. You don't really see that like generational music kind of going through spanning time anymore. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of stuff that I've listened to that's new that I could say, hey, you know what? 10 years from now or 15 years from now, when my kid's older, they're still going to listen to this song and it's going to be just as cool back then.
Yeah, I think some of it. So my journey through music is I listened to a lot of, let's see, junior high. I was more heavy metal. So
Okay.
Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, stuff like that.
Yep.
Got into high school, and somehow I went to the opposite end of the spectrum, and it was almost all rap and hip hop.
Okay.
And then after high school, it was I believe the genre is new metal, so more like a Linkin Park, Korn,
Gotcha. Okay.
System of a Down, stuff like that. And I mean, I still listen to all that stuff now. You saying that you listen to stuff that your parents listen to, I grinned because my parents are, I was a late addition to the family, and my parents are 1950s doo-wop type music.
Okay.
That I can't handle too much of. But I think with music now that my daughter's listening to and that yours will be listening to soon, I think there's a few artists that are going to be around.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously some very talented people, but if I look at, I'm not sure of and I'm sure people would probably have comments on this. I'm not sure that I can name a new rock band outside of like Imagine Dragons, but I guess they're considered rock. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't think of a band where people are actually playing instruments that's come out in the last few years, right? But
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're out there.
Right.
There. So nobody turn us off yet, right? I'm not completely closed-minded to it, but it's just I don't necessarily listen to a whole lot of new music. It's more bands and artists from whatever genre it is that have been around for 10, 15, 20, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. So, you know what? That's actually a really good thing is, if you guys are familiar with some bands out there that actually play instruments, I'll say, because I do enjoy instruments. I enjoy electronic just as much as instruments. I'm not dissing anything. Let us know who you guys listen to. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to find some new artists like, first like Muse, Black Keys, stuff like that always come to my head because they do still play, Muse is kind of a mishmash, but, like Black Keys and stuff like that, there's a lot of instruments involved. But again, when you start to think about new, they're not that new. They've kind of been around for a while. So, if there's some new music out there, I'd love to hear it. Like I said, I'm always open for anything, but I'd love to hear some opinions on some other bands that are out there that people are listening to. Even some of your local bands that you can find on a Spotify or digital music. I'd love to hear about it.
Yep. And I think so we can do the thing that people always talk about, right? If you were on an island and you could only take, do we want to do 5 or 3? I don't know. Off the cuff, it might be tough to come up with 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's do 5. 5?
You got 5. That's why you're asking.
I mean, we've got a little bit of time here to eat up, right? So, I mean, we've got some Verify workshop stuff to talk about here, but we'll eat up a little bit more time. Yeah, before we get to that. So, are you going to go first, or you want me to go first?
Go ahead, man. You got something in mind, man. I could.
I'm not sure that I have 5. I'm going to go with. Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. So that's
Interesting.
their first album. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction.
Good album.
See, now I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's gonna get. All right, let's see. Favorite bands. And Linkin Park. It's probably something from Breaking Benjamin in there. I'm
Okay.
not even. Again, I'm not even sure I could name one of their albums, right? I just have a bunch of their music on my phone. Um, I'm gonna go with,
Oh man, it's
I
tough.
guess, All Eyes on Me by Tupac, and I'm not
Mm.
sure who the fifth one would be. I'll come up with a fifth one while you're going.
Yeah. See, now I'm trying to think of
I, I,
album
I
names.
think you're gonna pick a bunch of not music that I picked.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, I think. So, I would probably say, and this is something that we had talked about, was Zeppelin #4. I think that's just a fantastic album that, like, if I were stuck on an island, I could listen to repeatedly. Um, so I did say I'm a huge Muse fan. So I would say Black Holes and Revelations was probably my favorite album that they put out, and probably one of their first really mainstream albums. So I love that album. And I'm a big cross of electronic and instrumental. Another one that may be a little bit further out there, that a lot of people may not know, but this goes back to my youth days, when I could take a beating in a mosh pit. That would have been. I'm a huge Guar fan. So
Nice.
if you've never heard of Guar, if you've never been to a Guar show, I apologize if you've never been to one. They're probably one of the funnest shows to go to. So Guar, Scumdogs of the Universe is probably one of the best albums they put out, and just a great album to listen to repeatedly, because every time I listen to it, it always cracks a smile. Not just from my youth, but just because it's just hilarious. Um, and let's see. Metallica, but I'm trying to think of my favorite album is the problem. They've got a
Yeah.
lot of good albums, and it's kind of a cross up between Master of Puppets, which is, from my perspective, is a phenomenal album. And then secondarily, Ride the Lightning is also a phenomenal album. So that's kind of a toss up, but I won't bring two Metallicas.
So yeah,
um,
so Ride the Lightning was going to be
okay.
my fifth one, and I
Okay.
may scratch Breaking Benjamin off and figure out something else there. That was a from the cuff. I had to pick something kind of thing.
Okay. And then, so how many was that? I don't even know. Muse, Zeppelin. Was that 4 or 5? I don't even know. I think it might have been 4. So if I owe
Yeah, it's
one
good.
more,
Yeah,
um,
War, nice mosh pits. We can talk about that some other
oh,
time.
dude, dude, I've seen them so many times. It's ridiculous, and I was so close. They were. So I'm from Chicago, and every Halloween they always did a Chicago show. So I've seen them so many times, it's ridiculous. And they had a reunion tour for Scumdogs of the Universe. It wasn't a reunion; it was a tour. It was like a 20-year anniversary or something like that. And it was out in
Sure.
Milwaukee. And I was so close to going, but I couldn't find anybody to go with me. And everybody's just like, "No, I'll just get hurt." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's Guar. Of course you're gonna get hurt."
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anybody to go. So I was a little disappointed I didn't make it. But that was just hilarious. Hilarious banter on those albums. It's great. Um,
Yeah, my last experience in a mosh pit was an Ozfest here in St. Louis,
okay.
and um, Korn was on stage. And in St. Louis, there's an outside amphitheater, so obviously up in the lawn. And I was on, I was standing on the top side of the mosh pit on this
Okay.
downslope hill,
Okay.
and I didn't realize that there was a much larger mosh pit that had started behind me, and the two merged, and I wasn't necessarily prepared for that,
Oh. Okay.
I stood up, and again, for everybody that I've never met, I'm not necessarily a tall person. I'm hovering there around 5'3" or 5'4", good elbow height, and took an elbow right in the eye, and I went down. And I mean, someone grabbed me and pulled me out, and I had a huge, like, goose egg right here for days. And I mean, it was fine, right? I mean, it's all in fun, and everybody's having a good time and that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I now that was my last time, because I've decided that I'm of an age where I don't need to be that close to the mosh
I
pit.
can't
But
do that anymore. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be,
yeah,
I want to, but I get look, I get knocked down, my back's gonna hurt. I mean, like, forget it at this point.
yeah. I would have went. I would have went to the Guar show.
Yeah,
But I'm
you should
stupid
have.
like that. I would have gotten hurt.
Yeah,
My friends probably did the right thing.
yeah, exactly. No, all right, that's awesome. So, I guess you and I, if we're ever on a road trip together, I guess we've agreed that we can listen to Metallica Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can get away with a lot of the same music. I think we'll be safe.
Yeah, yeah,
It
awesome.
might be a
So,
very eclectic car ride.
yeah, yeah. Let's shift and talk some Verify stuff.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Yep, yep. So it's what we're here for, right? To talk about some stuff and talk about some Verify stuff. So we've got a version 13 EFT,
We
um,
do. Yep.
and I will back off and let you talk about
Okay.
maybe a couple of the features that are included in the 13. That EFT process. It's nothing too crazy, but it is something
Yeah.
that people have to sign up for, and some of the upcoming workshops that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Because look, you know me, I get excited about stupid things. But I think EFT is awesome going into it. I look forward to being able to work with a lot of our customers on some of these new features that people have been asking for. We've got some webinars coming up. So anybody that's looking to learn a little bit more about EFT. I'm sorry, I used the word webinars. I mean workshops, as we are changing the name of those. That is going to be changed on our website. That's something that you guys will see coming up. So all of March, we're doing workshops based on EFT 13. We're going to be hitting some of the, I hate to say smaller features, but some of the things that are a little less noticeable, not as grand, I guess you would say, coming up. So some of the bigger things that we're working on that are going to be out in EFT that we really want to get people's involvement in, because we know a lot of people could take advantage of these. So make sure you head over to Planet Verify. There's a group out there. That's how you're going to sign up for to take part in the EFT. That's going to include Verify folks along with other customers that are taking advantage of the EFT, and that's just Planet Verify. And right up at the top header, you're going to see an option to sign up for the EFT 13 group. But with all that said, let's talk a little bit about some of the functionality that we're going to get to try out ahead of release. I would say some of the bigger things that we're looking forward to are, one, something that people have been asking us for a while, and that's some audible alerts built around contact center. So in other words, look, if my queue goes over 5 calls in there, having the dashboard change colors is great, but if I'm looking at something else or I'm reading emails, and we all are, having some kind of alert audible that's going to allow me to draw attention over to that, or let my call center draw attention over to where the problem is great. So we're getting ready to roll that out. That's going to be part of EFT. So if you guys have some contact center, you want to test out some of the audible alerting, by all means, sign up for that EFT group, get involved with the EFT. Anybody that knows Verify, we build a lot of these things based on our customer request, what people are looking for and looking to get out of the system. That's one of those things that people have been asking for. So we've got that coming out in EFT, and we expect that to drop in April. Another big
That's
one that's
also the
sorry, go ahead.
audible alert is also good for those wallboard scenarios too, right? So
Yes.
not just for an agent or a supervisor that would have something on their computer. The wallboard feature is that 60-inch TV that's hanging on a wall somewhere, and all it's doing is displaying statistics, and someone may not see the color change from green to red, but they'll hear
Right.
the audible alert.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's going to be a huge help to a lot of call center folks. And also the nice thing about that is when we have people working remote, being able to hear that audible alert. Like, I mean, let's face it, people step away from their desks and things like that. It happens. So being able to hear that a lot audible alert is going to help draw some attention there to a potential problem that needs to get resolved. Other thing that is big out there is going to be some CCX reporting. So we are making some changes to how we show and allow you to report some of that not UCCX cube data. So what we're doing with cube data right now, if you're familiar with any of our cube data, it's great. We sequence all the events together for you. So if I'm trying to look for dropped calls or trying to find how many calls went to a particular number or from a particular number, it's great because we're going to show you how many times, how they came into your UCCX, how they came out of your UCCX. God, I keep saying UCCX, I mean cube. But how they came into your cube, how they went back out of your cube. So what we're doing there, though, is we're adding some ability to ungroup those call records. So some of our customers have requested the ability to just get kind of the straight number. I don't need to necessarily see the sequencing. I just want to know how many calls hit this number. So what we're giving you the ability to do is kind of unsequence some of that and almost kind of reverse engineer it so you can get just a static count of how many calls hit a particular error message or how many calls hit a particular phone number or a particular gateway rather than kind of keeping all the sequence together and giving you those sequence counts. So we're going to go ahead and do a workshop on that to kind of show you some of the functionality about that. But it's great. I mean, it's a single button. You're either sequencing or you're not sequencing. But it's going to give you some additional reporting options on how you want to group that information. And, I found it most useful on widgets and just being able to see some static numbers of how many particular events took place for a particular query. So that's going to be dropping a little bit in April as well. So if you're using our cube, it's a great opportunity to take advantage of some logic. Give us some of your feedback on what you feel, how it could be used, and maybe how some changes need to take place so it could be better used. That's really what that EFT group is for, is just kind of voicing your opinion on some of that functionality. Last but definitely not least, and there's going to be more functionality coming out in our 13.0. This is really just our EFT and some of the bigger features that we want to really test out before we get out into the world. And that's going to be our database archiving. This is something, Jeff, I could spend a whole hour going on. I love this feature, but it's really, the long and short of it is we have a lot of customers that say, hey, we want to hold data for very large amounts of time. We may not ever need to query this data. Or, if we do need to query something from 7 years ago, we just need it to be there for compliance or, we just want to have it so that way it's there should we ever need to go back to it. That's really a lot of what this database archiving is built around. It's really built around a hot, cold storage methodology. So you have, the data that, your end users are running, their current, week reports, their last 1 month reports or 2 month or quarter reports is built on a hot storage model. So I'm going to be querying this data with regularity. But I have this other, 2 years or 3 years or 7 years or 10 years worth of data that we need to have out there. But I don't really want it slowing down my hot storage. I don't want my end users to be impacted by this data that we need to keep there for compliance. And that's really what the database archiving methodology is built around, is allowing you to kind of take some of this data, still keep it seamlessly reportable to your end users, but put it off somewhere where when you need to report it, it's there. But it's not what I use on my day-to-day, so I don't really want it slowing things down for, Victor, who's running a report on his department, ad hoc. So there's a lot of functionality that's going into this, and the way that we're going to be auto archiving some of this hot and cold storage methodology. So it is definitely something that I'm super excited to get out in the field, because we have a lot of those customers that really just need that data there for compliance. They're really hardly querying it, but it's got to be there, and we just don't want it to slow down the day-to-day operations. So something I'm super excited to kind of get out there and kind of get my hands on.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so again, the EFT stuff, we can hit that over on Planet. There's also information out there floating around about the EFT. Workshops are coming up. Vic, have you been tapped for any of those, or do we have some other SEs jumping in and doing the workshops?
We're spreading the wealth a little bit on the workshops. So, yeah, we've got some other SGs jumping in there and taking care of some of those. All throughout the month of March, we're going to be hitting up those workshops for EFT. I like to get my hands in there, and I'm sure I'll be involved in a little bit on them. But, yeah, we like to spread the wealth over here a little bit.
Fantastic. Okay, well, everybody, thank you very much for listening to checking out the podcast. Check out Planet to see any information about the EFT and the stuff that Vic just talked about. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Time's up.